Ever grappled with the agony of doubt in a relationship that defined your very existence? My journey with Kelly, rooted in profound love, was suddenly overshadowed by insidious suspicions. Do you realize that? I love you so much, and losing you would be the worst thing that could ever happen to me, I confessed during a confrontation, my heart hanging on her every expression. Her assurances felt hollow against the cacophony of rumors. As my world teetered on the brink of collapse, an unexpected ally emerged. Michael, I really owe you big time. You can't imagine how this feels to me. I will forever be indebted to you, said General James, unexpectedly intertwining our lives further. This is my story, a whirlwind of love, betrayal, and redemption. Watch as it unfolds. Life was good with Kelly. We had been together since high school, and I fell in love with her instantly. Her red hair, green eyes, and smile swept me off my feet. We had a few bumps along the way, but nothing major. I first noticed Kelly when she caught me staring at her during lunch. She jokingly scolded me, but then invited me to join her and her friend, Angela. Angela was a big girl, but lovely, and Kelly was petite. I started spending time with Kelly, helping her family with chores. Her parents appreciated it, especially when we washed the dishes after dinner. Mr. Thompson joked about not needing a dishwasher with me around. Kelly and I bonded over simple acts of kindness. Our love story was sweet and uncomplicated. We were happy together, and life was smooth sailing. But that all changed one day. As a teenager, I loved working on cars and fixing them up to sell. It was a skill I learned from my Uncle Tim, who often stayed with us after getting kicked out by his girlfriends. He taught me everything about engines and transmissions, and I was grateful for his help. My girlfriend Kelly and I were both determined to go to college and pursue our dreams. I wanted to be an engineer, and she wanted to be a surgical nurse. We spent countless nights studying together, with her mom checking in on us to make sure we weren't up to any mischief. Despite our focus on school, we shared some intense moments together. Kelly was cautious about going too far, worried about the consequences. I respected her boundaries and cherished the time we spent together, even if it was just heavy makeout sessions. After graduation, I surprised Kelly with a marriage proposal. I got down on one knee and presented her with a stunning diamond ring, surrounded by rubies and diamonds. She said yes, and her mother was overjoyed at the news. We were eager to start our life together, and I promised Kelly that we would have our wedding right after our next graduation. The excitement and anticipation of our future together filled us with hope and joy. By now, I was 6 feet 2 inches tall, and Kelly stood at 5 feet 7 inches with beautiful 36C breasts that stayed in place without any effort. We had an amazing summer together, but we knew we wouldn't see each other much once college started. Kelly was going to nursing school 45 miles away, but had to live at home. Her mom made sure of that. I got into a local state college with a grant for my good grades. I also joined Air Force ROTC to boost my resume. My first year of college went really well, and I worked hard in all my classes. When the grades came out, I had a 3.96 GPA. At an ROTC meeting, the lieutenant gave me an envelope with an amazing offer. I was invited to visit the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. I asked Kelly to come with me, but she couldn't miss her extra classes. So I went alone and was treated like royalty. A senior cadet named Walker showed me around and took me to all the cool places around campus. They even had fun activities for regular students. At dinner, Walker took me to sit at the head table with the commandant and his team. It was a surreal experience, and I felt so honored to be there. There was a name card with my name next to Major General Harold P. James. I couldn't believe how lucky I was to have this opportunity. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and I was grateful for every moment of it. Kelly may not have been there with me, but I knew she was cheering me on from afar. The general welcomed me warmly and gestured for me to sit down. I asked him if everyone got to sit at the head table, to which he chuckled and said that Art had spoken highly of me. He explained that Art was a close friend and had recommended me for this opportunity. I was surprised, as I didn't know who Art was. The general teasingly mentioned that Art was my girlfriend's father, causing me to gulp nervously. He went on to describe Art as a wild and resourceful airman who always knew how to have a good time and get things done. After dinner, the general invited me to his office, along with a few others. He offered me a full scholarship to the Air Force Academy, praising my grades and potential. Sitting in front of his desk, I felt a mix of excitement and gratitude for the opportunity presented to me. I was filled with a sense of pride and determination to make the most of this chance given to me. The thought of becoming a cadet at the Air Force Academy filled me with a sense of purpose and drive. I was ready to embrace this new chapter in my life and make the most of the opportunities ahead. I was shocked. I hesitated before speaking. I said, "General, your offer is amazing, but can I think about it for 48 hours? The general smiled and said, "You have up to a week, but not longer." I thanked him and headed back to the barracks with Walker J. The next morning, Kelly hugged me and said she would miss me. She asked me not to get involved with any other cadets. I was surprised she already knew about the offer. Her Uncle Hal had filled her in. I learned that Uncle Hal was actually Major General Harold James, and he was the one who introduced my parents. Kelly's family seemed to have everything planned out, including my future. It was all a bit overwhelming, but I decided to go along with it. Becoming an Air Force officer wasn't so bad, and I'd still end up being an engineer, but the tough part was not being able to see Kelly as much. When I told my parents, my dad was super proud, but my mom was worried I might go into combat. I reassured her that I wasn't into flying, I just wanted to get my engineering degree. I called General James the next day and accepted his offer. He joked that he'd be watching me at Art and Kelly's request. Once at the academy, the classes were tough, but I was managing. We were being trained to be leaders, and the standards were high. One Saturday, I was invited to a party with some cadets. When I arrived, half of them were barely dressed and partying by the pool. A girl in a thong came up to me and made an inappropriate suggestion. But then, I saw a girl who reminded me of Kelly, and guilt flooded me. I politely declined and left. The girl called me names, but I knew that wasn't the right kind of party for me. When I got back to campus, some of my classmates had heard about it. I heard them call me names like Queer Boy and Cube behind my back. Then 2 seniors kept calling me those names despite me asking them to stop. When I confronted them, they just laughed at me. So I punched both of them, which got me in trouble with the principal. Principal James sat at his desk looking through the charges. "Michael, hitting a superior is serious," he said. "Do you understand that, son?" "Yes," I replied. He continued, "It says here you hit them for no reason, is that true?" I shook my head. "No, sir," I said. "Care to explain?" he asked, more gently this time. I didn't want to snitch, but I also didn't want to get in more trouble. I hesitated before speaking. "I was invited to a party off campus," I began. "There were cadets there, half of them naked. Girls were making advances on me. One even tried to take me to a bedroom. But then I saw someone who reminded me of Kelly and I realized what was happening. I pushed the girl away and she called me queer." Principal James listened intently. "You did the right thing, Michael," he said finally. "I understand why you reacted the way you did, but hitting others is not the solution. Let's work on finding a better way to handle these situations, okay?" I nodded, grateful for his understanding. Some classmates heard her and word got around school. People started calling me names like Queer Boy and Cube behind my back. It made me feel angry and hurt. 2 guys kept taunting me and I couldn't take it anymore. I know I shouldn't have done it, but I couldn't control myself. I punched them both in the jaw and they fell to the ground. I felt a rush of satisfaction even though I knew it was wrong. I thought I deserved to be punished. But when I faced the consequences, the general surprised me. He understood why I did what I did. He told me he would handle it. I felt relieved but also confused. A few days later, there was a school assembly about harassment and assault. It covered important topics and sent a message to the whole school. The 2 guys who had bullied me were punished by having to clean up campus. During Christmas break, my girlfriend and I had a wonderful time together. We went on adventures and made memories that would last a lifetime. I felt grateful to have her by my side during the holiday season. Life felt good again. I hoped she got separate beds, as I wasn't sure I could control myself. Kelly's parents went to see her sister and new grandson in Phoenix, so she was home alone. She offered for me to stay, but I wasn't sure we could resist doing something. She said she could if I could. I admitted that I wasn't sure I could. She playfully kissed me on the phone. I couldn't stop thinking about it on my drive home. I decided to stop by her house before going to my parents'. When I arrived, She greeted me in a see-through sundress with flowers on it, hugging me tightly. We kissed for a long time until a neighbor yelled at us. We went inside and had a delicious dinner Mrs. Wilson had made. After eating just enough, Kelly and I sat on the couch watching a movie. She said she was cold and went to change. She came back wearing a sheer pajama top and tiny matching thong. She climbed into my lap and kissed me passionately. I started to ask if she was sure, but she began to undress me instead. She gave me a job. Wow, I thought. Where did she learn? This part of me wanted to know, but I knew. If I asked her, she'd be mad at me for asking because I would be suggesting she was unfaithful to me. But gosh, she was doing it like a pro. Not that I've ever been with one before. Kelly was screaming like crazy as orgasms hit her like a wave. She was yelling, "Yes." "Wow, Michael," I said. "Kelly, I'm about to explode. Let me pull out. We're not ready to be parents. We both have school to finish." But Kelly kept up her wild attack, pressing her lips tightly to mine and tangling her tongue with mine, and I exploded. Oh man, we're still on our couch, holding each other in that same position as Kelly's legs and body shook, and I caressed her soft back and held her sweet jugs to my chest. What had we done? This was so different from the Kelly I had left a few months ago. Now I was really wondering if she was seeing someone else. I know it was dumb, but she had gone from a shy little flower into a lust-filled lady. But I loved her and was gently kissing the sweat from her neck and shoulder when she turned and looked at me. Her eyes were glazed over and she was smiling like she knew a secret, putting her finger in my mouth. She asked, "Did you enjoy my gift?" My love, that was quite a gift. What did I do to deserve that? Aren't you worried about getting pregnant? You know, that would mess up our plans for school, I said. Kelly leaned back with me, holding her with my arms to keep her from falling, and said, "Michael, sweetheart. First of all, last month I talked with a doctor and he gave me birth control pills. Second is because Uncle Hal called and told me how you said no to a girl who was trying to seduce you into having wild sex with her. You turned her down. Rewrite the given text and follow these rules. Use short and low syllables, change words with simpler words, and use varied sentence lengths. Use most common words in the English language when possible. Keep word count the same. In a story-like tone with strong emotions and extend in length. I knew you were thinking of me when you came back home, and you wanted to please me after knowing I wouldn't approve of cheating. I decided to surprise you with a special gift and asked some nurses for ideas on how to make you happy. Did I do a good job? It seemed like you enjoyed it a lot. Michael, I can tell you did. When I told them how big you were, they even wanted your number if we didn't end up together. It made me proud and a bit annoyed at the same time. I pulled you close and gave you a deep kiss, showing my love. I made sure to please you in every way I could. After we had our fun and fell asleep, we were awoken by the noise outside. This was Southern California, after all. She went to brush her teeth and came back to clean mine, too. We ended up having sex again, and the minty toothpaste added an extra kick to the experience. Kelly then mentioned we should remember this for our wedding night after we both reached our peak. She went to make breakfast, and I could already smell the bacon cooking. I got ready and saw her in the kitchen, wearing just an apron that barely covered her. She looked stunning. I poured myself some coffee and couldn't help but admire her. She was a beautiful sight. As I sipped my coffee, I knew I had to build up my strength, as she hinted there was more excitement to come. Kelly told me to help myself to sugar and cream for my breakfast. She made corn cakes and maple bacon, and I asked if it was okay. I sat at the table where she placed the morning paper, struggling to read with Kelly moving around in front of me. As I watched her, I felt licorice in my crotch. I poured another cup of coffee and sat back down. Kelly brought out a plate of bacon and a stack of corn cakes. She knows I love them, as her mother makes them for me. Kelly only gave herself one piece of bacon, saying she didn't want to feel weighed down when we raced through the park later. I had already eaten a lot, but she insisted. We cleaned up and headed out for a jog to Starbucks. Kelly wanted to visit my parents, and my mom scolded me for not coming home the night before. Kelly assured her that I was a perfect gentleman. I hoped my mom didn't notice the way Kelly emphasized the word perfect. Mom looked at Kelly sternly and asked, "So now you're calling me Linda instead of Mrs. Grant, huh?" Kelly took a step back, trying to find the right words. "Well, Mrs. Grant, I thought maybe we could be more casual since I'll be part of the family soon," she said softly. Mom smiled. hugging Kelly tightly. "You're my son's future wife. You're practically family already. Why don't you stay here tonight while your parents are away? We don't need any trouble with you two alone at home." She suggested planning the wedding for when I graduate from the academy. Kelly was thrilled, hugging Mom with joy. She turned to me, asking for my thoughts, and I agreed happily. Later, Kelly and I went for a run in the woods. We stopped to catch our breath, and Kelly asked if I saw anyone around. I looked around and shook my head no. Kelly took off her top and pulled down her shorts, inviting me to join her. Without hesitation, I followed her lead. We found a flat rock to lay on, and Kelly spread her legs, urging me to make a move. I didn't need to be told twice. The rocky surface made it a bit uncomfortable, but I was determined to please Kelly. As time passed, she found pleasure multiple times, while I struggled to reach my peak. After a while, Kelly asked if I was going to finish. I confessed that the awkward position was making it difficult for me. Suddenly, I let out a loud scream that echoed through the canyons. Someone below responded, joking about the fun we were having. Feeling embarrassed, Kelly quickly got dressed. I had to carry my muddy top as we made our way back to my car. Once home, my mom informed us that Kelly's parents wanted to talk to us about a possible future together. As we giggled about our mountain adventure, Sarah walked in and immediately sensed something was going on. She confronted us about our relationship, convinced that we were sexually active. Kelly and I tried to deny it, but Sarah saw through our facade. She explained that she could tell by the look on our faces, reminiscent of her own experiences before getting married. Surprised and flustered, we tried to defend ourselves, but Sarah made it clear that she knew the truth. The conversation ended with a mix of emotions, leaving us both feeling exposed and vulnerable. Harold warned that if he got me pregnant before marrying me, he'd end up as a target on the firing range. "But now you two seem to be intimate, are you?" "Mom, it's not your business. I'm grown up. Don't treat me like a kid." Kelly replied, "My dear, I should have talked to you about this earlier, but I thought we had time. I blame myself for this. Are you using protection?" Kelly shook her head. "No." Mom sighed and took Kelly's hand. "Are you on birth control pills?" Kelly nodded. "Yes." Mom looked concerned and held Kelly's hand. "Sweetheart, most of us have issues with birth control pills. I was on them when I had you and your sister. Your dad had to use condoms or I had to try other methods. You need to use condoms now. Got it?" Mom said, looking at me. "Get a few pregnancy tests. Take one now and 2 more in the coming weeks just to be safe. Michael might have strong sperm." We were in shock, holding each other's hands tightly. Tears were streaming down Kelly's face. I held her close, assuring her we'll get through this. "Maybe you're not pregnant." But my words only made her cry harder, burying her head in my chest. Mom came over, hugging us both, kissing Kelly, and shaking her head in concern. I said, "Sorry I didn't tell you sooner, kids. I thought there was more time." Sarah took Kelly to her room, and I ran home to change into jeans and a polo shirt. Then I went to the store to get some pregnancy tests and condoms. The girl at the checkout gave me a funny look. I drove to Kelly's and gave her mom the tests. Kelly called me the next morning, sounding upset. She said I was going to be a father. Her parents wanted to talk to my parents. I was so scared to tell my parents. I was banging my head against the wall when my mom walked in. She told me she loved me and would always be there for me. I started crying. Taking a deep breath, I told her she was going to be a grandma soon. She was shocked, but said we would make the best of it. She had warned us about playing with fire. Now we had to face the consequences and make the best of the situation. She can't be too far along. We only had sex for the first time 10 days ago. I didn't expect it to happen. We were saving ourselves for our honeymoon. But Kelly found out about a female cadet who tried to seduce me, and I turned her down. She wanted to reward me, so she went on the pill and got advice from her coworkers on how to treat their partners. I just planned to stop by her house to say I was back, then go see you guys. We ended up having dinner and watching a movie together on the couch. Things just happened. My mom questioned if the baby is really mine. I got defensive because Kelly is not that kind of girl. I could tell it was her first time, and I know it was mine. Mom was skeptical because Kelly said she was on the pill but still got pregnant. We had sex during our run the day before, and Kelly's mom had a strong reaction when she found out. Her mom explained that birth control pills don't usually work in their family. Now her parents want to talk about the situation. I need to tell Dad, unless you want to do it for me. No, mister. You have to do it yourself. I had to tell my dad some tough news, all alone. As he fixed the mower in the garage, I went to him. I heard my mom say he had to clean up before we talked to the Thompsons. She said I needed to be gentle with him. I told my dad the news. It was hard to say. His face changed when I told him. He hugged me, twirling me around. He was so happy to be a grandpa. He said we could make it work. He believed in us. I had told my mom already. She wasn't as excited. She didn't think the baby was mine. But I knew Kelly wouldn't do that. We had to go to the Thompsons to talk about the situation. My dad ran off to get ready. We arrived at the Thompsons' house. My dad was full of excitement. He couldn't wait to have a grandchild to take fishing or have tea parties with. He was sure we could make it work. He believed in our love. It was a tough talk, but my dad was there for me. He was happy to be a grandpa and excited for the future. I was grateful for his support and belief in us. The 6 of us, including our parents, sat in the living room. We were all gathered together to discuss something important. Art, my future father-in-law, stood up to start the conversation. He didn't beat around the bush and got straight to the point. He insisted that Kelly and I needed to get married to avoid having a grandchild born out of wedlock. My parents agreed with him, and Art turned to us for our opinion. Kelly and I held hands and nodded in agreement. We were willing to go along with their plan. Art had already made arrangements for us to get our marriage license at City Hall that day. He had even arranged for Judge Bartholomew to marry us on Friday evening. Art emphasized the importance of choosing a best man and maid of honor, as well as a few friends to witness the ceremony. My father raised a concern about the rush of getting married on New Year's Eve. Art explained that with Kelly going back to school and me leaving for Colorado shortly after, it made sense to have the wedding then. Plus, the date would be easy to remember for our anniversary. Art reassured us that Judge Bartholomew had already obtained our backdated marriage license to accommodate the quick wedding. My mother expressed some doubts about Kelly's pregnancy and suggested waiting for confirmation from a doctor. She even mentioned the possibility of a paternity test, which I immediately dismissed. It was decided that we would go pick up our marriage license from Judge Bartholomew's chambers. Despite the initial hesitations and doubts, we were all moving forward with the plan for our wedding. The emotions in the room were high, but we were all determined to make it work for the sake of our future family. On Friday, we got married in Art and Sarah's living room. It was just me, my best friend Paul, Kelly's sister, and General James. We weren't sure what General James thought of us, but he didn't talk much to me. Saying goodbye to Kelly on Sunday was tough. I cried after she left. Our parents gave us a weekend stay at the Marriott honeymoon suite. Back at the academy, I focused on my studies to keep my mind off missing Kelly and our baby. Kelly was busy with her master's program and rarely emailed me. My mom would question if the baby was mine, but I always assured her it was. Kelly didn't send me pictures because she said she felt fat. She wouldn't see me even when we had time off together, which hurt. My mom even suggested Kelly might be seeing someone else. One day, at Kelly's school, I saw another guy with her. I got angry and yelled at him to come back. Kelly ran to me with a big smile, her baby bump showing. She hugged me and kissed me fiercely. It was a moment of relief and happiness after all the doubts and worries. I realized how much I loved Kelly, and I vowed to always protect her and our baby. Our love was strong, and nothing could break us apart. I asked Kelly about the guy who grabbed her arm after our kiss. She told me he's just a nurse friend named Josh who walks her back to her dorm. She's staying on campus now to avoid driving every day. Her parents pick her up on weekends. She excitedly told me we'll find out the baby's gender next month with an ultrasound. I told her I don't care as long as the baby is healthy. Kelly's mom gave me a cold reception when I saw them packing. I felt out of place. I went back to studying at the academy, thinking about Kelly and our baby. She sent me an email with an ultrasound picture saying she can't wait to find out the baby's gender. I couldn't make out the image at first, just a vague outline of a baby with squiggles and shadows. So I enlarged and printed it, then took it to the medic and the doctor. They both seemed puzzled, but the doctor eventually said it looked like I was going to be a father to a future airman. I was stunned. I showed them my records and admitted I wasn't married, but the doctor found out my wife, Kelly, was the general's niece. He scolded me for not reporting it and warned me of the consequences. I was scared of being stationed in a remote location, away from everyone until my tour was up. As I stood on the firing range that day, my mind raced with worry. How had I gotten myself into this mess? I was good at hitting targets with my weapons, but now I was facing a different kind of challenge. The weight of my mistakes was heavy on my shoulders, and I knew I had to face the consequences of my actions. The doctor's words echoed in my mind, and I realized I had really messed up. This was not how I had imagined starting a family. I felt a mix of fear, regret, and uncertainty about what the future held for me and my unborn child. But deep down I knew I had to be strong and face whatever came my way. The range instructor kept moving me to farther targets, but I always hit the bullseye. It took a shot or two to find my aim, but then I was on point. After shooting at 1,000 yards, my phone rang with a photo of Kelly and our new son. The caption asked for a name. I yelled in excitement, getting the attention of other officers. They congratulated me, and the instructor sent me back to my barracks with praise. Thinking of a name for our son, I called Kelly. She answered, and I suggested naming him James Grant after her uncle. But she surprised me by saying Michael. She explained that her mother and uncle would love that name. She then asked when I would come home to see our son and her. I admitted that I thought she might be seeing someone else, especially when I saw her with another man. Kelly expressed her concerns about me cheating, but I reassured her of my love and faithfulness. I promised to come home soon and vowed to never betray her trust. Losing her would be my worst nightmare. I heard Kelly sniffle, and I told her I never meant for her to cry. I love her and will see the general soon. I asked her to email me the picture she sent in a text of her holding James so I could bring it to the general. She said she would, and in less than a minute, I got a new email notification on my computer. I opened my email and saw the picture I needed. I used a program to edit the photo. I added words to the picture, October 12, 1999, announcing the arrival of our future airman, James Howell Grant, born to Michael and Kelly Grant. I printed several copies and rushed to the general's office. His aide initially said the general was busy. I told him his niece had just had a baby boy and showed him the picture. He smiled and said he'll tell the general it's a special delivery. I hope he won't be upset with me. I know I upset him before. I nodded. The aide opened the door and shouted, "Special delivery!" and quickly marched to the general's desk, saluted. When the general saw me, he stood up and yelled, "What do you think you're doing here?" I handed him one of the pictures without saying a word. He was about to throw it away without looking, but something caught his eye. He looked at it for a long time, then sank back into his chair. His chin trembled and a tear rolled down his cheek. He held the picture against his chest with his eyes closed. After a few minutes, he opened his eyes and said, "I assume you came here to ask for some time off to meet your new son? Go ahead, take a deep breath." I replied, "I can't expect anything from you. I know you don't like what we did, but we love each other and plan to get married after I graduate in June. When you told Kelly about me turning down that girl, she wanted to, well, reward me by being intimate with me. She started taking birth control pills but didn't know that it might not work for her. Her mom never mentioned that it's a problem in their family. I tried to stop, but Kelly wouldn't let me in. Now we have James, named after you, sir." The general chuckled and said, "Sounds like the James women are similar. I should have talked to you before this mess." He called someone and said, "File a flight plan to Edwards ASAP. We're leaving in an hour. I'm bringing a cadet. I'll explain later. Get it done. Thanks." The general told me to pack quickly. Meet him on the tarmac in 45 minutes. I rushed to my barracks and packed a bag. I caught a ride to the runway. I didn't know which plane to take. I saw a shiny Cessna jet with its engines running. I saluted the pilot, and he asked why the general was taking me on short notice. Rumors about him being gay or having affairs swirled around. I explained that the general keeps his personal life private. He never gets involved in long-term relationships. His wife cheated on him with another officer in Iraq. Everyone knew, but he stayed silent. The general, injured in battle, was desperate to find his missing daughters. The witch who had tricked him was on the run with the man who had betrayed him. As the general's plane took off, I found myself sitting across from his seat, filled with anticipation. The engines roared as we sped down the runway, lifting off into the night sky over Denver. The sights below were mesmerizing, but I was brought back to reality when one of the general's aides called my name. I was summoned to the cockpit, where the captain greeted me with a smile. Confused but eager to help, I made my way past the captain and into the cockpit. The general's voice crackled over the intercom, requesting my presence. I couldn't fathom why he needed me, but I didn't question it as I hurried to him. The urgency in the general's eyes was palpable as he explained the situation. He needed my help to locate his missing daughters, who were taken by the traitorous couple. I felt a surge of determination and loyalty to help the general in any way I could. As the plane soared through the night, I worked alongside the captain and the general's aides to come up with a plan. We needed to find a way to track down the couple and bring the general's daughters back to safety. With each passing moment, the stakes grew higher. The general's anguish was evident, and I knew that I had to do everything in my power to help him. The mission ahead of us was risky, but I was ready to face whatever challenges came our way to bring the general's daughters home. The general was on the left, flying the plane, and he gestured for me to sit beside him. I strapped in and the general said, "Take charge, cadet. Show me what you've got." I had never flown a plane or even been in a cockpit before. I took hold of the controls, trying to keep the plane steady. The general urged me on, pushing me to do more. As we dipped down, he corrected my course, guiding me through the controls. I was nervous but determined to learn. The general quizzed me on our altitude. I had no idea. He showed me the altitude gauge and explained each instrument in the cockpit. He gave me instructions on how to handle the plane and let me practice with the controls. As we prepared to land, the general talked to air traffic control, getting permission and guidance. He taught me how to set the flaps and account for crosswinds. It was a thrilling experience. After landing, we rushed to the hospital where Kelly was. The general led me through the halls, exuding authority. We entered her room, filled with flowers and balloons, and my heart swelled with emotion. It was a moment I would never forget. When I entered the room, Kelly was feeding our son and her eyes sparkled with joy. Tears filled her eyes as she exclaimed, "Michael, I can't believe you're here." I hurried over to her and we shared a sweet kiss. She then warned me to be careful not to squish our son. She handed him to me, and as I looked at his precious face, I noticed how much he resembled me as a baby. I knew there was no denying that he was my son. General James was standing beside Kelly, caressing her face gently. He whispered something to her, causing her to pull him closer and plant a kiss on his cheek. I felt a surge of happiness filling me up. I approached the general and asked if he would like to hold James. He took him from me, cradling him carefully in his huge hands. It seemed like he was afraid to handle him roughly, afraid he might break him. Kelly reassured him, saying, "Uncle Hal, you can hold him. Don't worry, you won't hurt him." The general moved to a chair by the window, adjusting James's diaper. He glanced at us proudly, noting, "Yep, I can see he's a James, all right." I checked for myself and thought he resembled me, but I kept my thoughts to myself. The general straightened the diaper and I went back to Kelly, embracing her as we shared a tender moment. Just then, our mothers entered the room. Sarah, Kelly's mother, reached out for James, but the general stopped her, saying, "Sorry, sis, you'll have plenty of time with this little one. We have to leave in the morning." Kelly's heart sank as she pleaded with him, "Uncle Hal, can't you two stay a few more days? Please, pretty please." As he rocked little James, he said, "Kelly, I can't stay tomorrow because of a meeting with Senator Perkins. He wants his son to join the academy, but the boy has had issues with grades and drugs. We can't help with that. Maybe we can discipline him at the academy." Kelly asked if Michael could stay until Sunday. After some thought, the general agreed and ordered him to report to Edwards on Sunday at 9 a.m. Everyone laughed at the idea of disciplining Senator Perkins's son. The next few days flew by as Kelly and James moved in with her parents. They had set up a nice nursery for James, and both sets of parents were there to help. Everything seemed perfect until Saturday afternoon. Michael found his mother trying to get a sample from James's mouth. He was angry and wanted to confront her, but she gestured for him to stay quiet. He stormed out of the room, leaving Kelly worried. When she asked what was wrong, he snapped and then apologized. "I'm really going to miss you and our son when I have to leave. It's hard not knowing when we'll see each other again." I hated lying to her, but I had to go. She gave me a passionate kiss, interrupted by a cough from her father. The flight back was fun, with the general teaching me how to fly. He asked if I wanted to become a pilot, and I said yes. I watched as we landed, impressed by the controls and techniques. I enrolled in flight school and time flew by. I made it home for holidays, seeing James grow with each visit. Kelly graduated, and I attended with a big surprise waiting for me. My mother revealed that James was my son, and I was ecstatic. I warned her not to tell Kelly, or she would never see James again. We celebrated, but there was tension in the air. I continued my training and schooling, getting closer to my goals each day. I missed Thanksgiving, but by Christmas I had achieved new milestones. I was ready for deployment, with my flight and sniper training completed. I was busy but determined to succeed in my new journey. After completing secret missions overseas as a sharpshooter for intel groups, I received unexpected good news. I was granted 6 weeks of leave starting in December and assigned to a new station at Edwards. I could even get base housing for my family. Excited, I immediately called Kelly, my wife, to share the news. She was thrilled and planned a surprise getaway to the Hilton for us. During our stay, we had the time of our lives in the honeymoon suite. Kelly was a vision of beauty, and we indulged in each other's love. Room service visits were always a treat, as Kelly would playfully tease the young staff with her enticing presence. She made sure to show off a bit of skin, making their day and even getting free tips from them. Our breakfast delivery one morning was especially memorable, as a young woman lingered longer than usual, captivated by Kelly's charm. It was a moment of bliss for us, enjoying each other's company and creating memories that would last a lifetime. Love was truly in the air, and we relished every moment of our time together at the Hilton. When our waitress asked if we needed anything else, I said no and gave her a $1.20 bill before she left. Kelly then surprised me by initiating some intimate time which led to unexpected consequences. Despite having an IUD, our lovemaking resulted in the arrival of our daughter Alicia 9 months later. Kelly, without my knowledge, decided to have her tubes tied after Alicia's birth, causing a rift between us. The name Alicia held deep significance, as it was the name of the general's first daughter who we never met. At Alicia's christening, the general's tears of both joy and sorrow were impossible to hide. During lunch with the general, he expressed his sadness over missing out on meeting his grandchildren, a pain that cut deep. Despite his attempts to compose himself, his emotions overwhelmed him, leaving me at a loss for words. As he walked away, I grabbed a tissue soaked with his tears and held onto it, feeling the weight of his sorrow. I wrapped the tissue in plastic wrap, a small gesture to hold on to the memories of that emotional day. The unspoken pain and regret echoed in my mind, reminding me of the connections we often take for granted. The tissue became a symbol of the unspoken emotions that tied us all together, a tangible reminder of the bonds that transcend time and distance. I didn't tell them anything at home. I took some tissues and sent them to Ancestry.com with my name and email on a hunch. 2 months later, I got an email from Emily and Jane, sisters who found out they had DNA related to me. They grew up in Canada and were told their records were lost. Their dad was John and their mom was Carolyn. They moved to Alaska for their brother Kenneth's medical needs. After a while, they settled in Oregon. Their dad had passed away and their mom was in a nursing home. They both had families of their own. We had a phone call where I told them about their real father, General Harold P. James, who their mom ran away with when she was pregnant with them. They had memories of another father, but their mom told them to forget it. I told Emily she was named Alicia and Jane was named Sarah Marie. They were both shocked as those were their children's names. Now they have a decision to make. I found your real dad. Do you want me to tell him or do it yourself? I'm married to his niece. My dumb mom doubted I was his son, so we did a DNA test. The girls were together and talking quietly. They asked how they could meet him. I said I'd try to arrange it. I called General James and asked for a favor. He agreed to fly us to Oregon. He asked if it involved Kelly. I said indirectly. It affects both our families. We met the girls at the airport. They ran up and hugged the general. He was shocked. They called him Daddy and hugged him. Tears of joy filled his eyes. The girls introduced their husbands and kids. I stepped back as the general sat down to take it all in. I finally reunited with my long-lost daughters and discovered I had 7 grandchildren I never knew existed. It was an overwhelming moment, and I couldn't wait to share the news with Kelly. We packed our bags and headed to their place, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The general, my father-in-law, was bursting with pride. I could see the joy in his eyes as he introduced me to his extended family. He expressed his gratitude towards me, saying he would forever be indebted for bringing us all together. It was a heartwarming moment that made all the effort worth it. After spending some memorable days with our newfound family, we had to say our goodbyes. The general thanked me once again, and I felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing I had made such a positive impact on his life. As we left, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the bond we had formed. Our next adventure led us to Hawaii, where we started a new chapter in our lives. Kelly found a job with a talented orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Penrose, who eventually passed on his practice to Dr. Shaw. Kelly flourished in her role, constantly learning and growing in her career. Dr. Shaw was a brilliant surgeon, always striving to improve her techniques. Kelly accompanied her to numerous training seminars, soaking up knowledge and experience. I took on the role of a supportive husband, managing our home while our children grew into independent young adults. As our children pursued their own paths, Kelly's career continued to flourish. Her trip to Dallas for robotic surgery training was a turning point. She was excited about the possibilities it offered, both for patients and medical professionals. The 2 weeks without her felt long, but I knew it was a step towards a brighter future for all of us. It had been a while since Kelly and I had been intimate despite my desire for it. School and friends kept Alicia occupied, leaving me alone most of the time. But that changed the day I picked up Kelly from the airport. She was all over me in the car, whispering seductive promises in my ear. When we got home, she couldn't wait and pulled me out to the garage where she had a sudden burst of passion. She laid down on the car's hood, urging me to take her right then and there. I was stunned by her boldness, but I couldn't resist her. We were caught off guard by Alicia's arrival, but managed to sneak back inside, feeling like mischievous teenagers. It was a side of Kelly I hadn't seen before, and it ignited a fire in our relationship. As we lay in bed catching our breath, I couldn't help but feel grateful for this unexpected passion. It was a reminder of the deep connection we shared, and I was eager to explore it further. Kelly's sudden burst of desire had reignited something in me, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead us. Kelly left. We both laughed. She undressed, naked underneath. I was surprised. She pushed me onto the bed, took off my pants, and got on top of me quickly. It didn't take long for her to climax. She got off and thanked me, saying she needed that. She hoped for more later. Kelly changed into Daisy Dukes and a t-shirt, then went downstairs. I cleaned up and dressed in shorts and a t-shirt. Kelly shook her head when she saw me, indicating a private conversation with Alicia. I went to my den and checked our bank account. I found charges in Dallas for a dress and a wax. I searched for the Dallas robotics seminar and saw Kelly's picture on the website. She looked stunning in a black dress and red heels. I printed out her picture and hid it under the mattress. I wondered if her affair at the seminar made her horny. How could I talk to her about this? I ordered takeout for Kelly and Alicia, who had a date. Kelly looked sexy as she ate. She was enjoying her food. I was struggling to picture her at the seminar because she was so sexy. Then she got sauce on her fingers from the sweet and sour shrimp. She seductively sucked on her fingers, watching my reaction. I couldn't resist, so I carried her to our bedroom and quickly undressed. Kelly got on all fours and said, "Show me what you've got, big boy." I kept going, fueled by her passion, even though she asked me to stop eventually. Afterward, we lay in bed in silence. I saw a tear fall from her eye and asked her what was wrong. Kelly confessed that something had happened at the seminar. She mentioned the attractive women at the academy and asked if I had ever thought about being with them. I reassured her that she was the only one I wanted. Despite temptations during missions, I never strayed because I couldn't bear to lose her. We talked about our fears and insecurities, opening up to each other in a moment of vulnerability. As we held each other close, I knew that our love was stronger than any temptation. I never thought about playing with any of them. It was a tough situation. I was on a secret mission in South America with 5 female officers, and I ended up sharing a tent with Captain Tyler. She slept naked on top of her sleeping bag, making things even harder. I tried to be polite and faced away from her at night. But she snuggled up to me, slipping her hands under the sheet and into my boxers, teasing and playing with me. Captain Tyler was stunning, like a model from a magazine. I had to gather all my self-control to stop her advances and tell her that I was happily married and wouldn't do anything to risk my marriage. She kissed me passionately and asked why all the good ones were already taken. I told her that Kelly, my wife, was the love of my life, and our baby was my everything. I couldn't betray them. Kelly later questioned me about my trips for work and if I ever got lonely. I admitted that no one could compare to my wife. When I needed release, I would look at pictures of her to satisfy myself. I reminisced about a romantic weekend we had at a cozy B&B in the woods, using those memories to keep me grounded. In the end, the love I had for Kelly and our son was unwavering, and no temptation could sway me from that. They were my world, and I would never jeopardize what we had for anything or anyone else. I hope you're not mad at me. I'd stop a week before coming home so you wouldn't miss out on any fun. Why so many questions? What happened at the seminar? Holding my hand, Kelly said, "Promise not to get mad." I sat up and said, "It depends on what you have to tell me. I'm anxious and want to know. Please tell me." Taking a deep breath, Kelly said, "I've been fantasizing about being with someone else for fun. I still love you, but we've become boring. I can't help but think about other men. I see them everywhere and it's driving me crazy. I tried to be sexier for you, but it never worked out." "I understand how you feel," I said, wiping away tears. "What if I told you I feel the same way? I miss our wild times together. What happened in Dallas?" Kelly hesitated, then said, "I met someone." "What?" I exclaimed. Kelly reassured me and said, "It's not what you think. Let me explain. Sit down and listen. We were busy with seminars at first, but then I met someone on the third day. Doctor Who, one of the presenters, had a powerful impact on me. When David Patterson walked onto the stage, I felt a rush of excitement. My heart raced and I couldn't focus on what he was saying. I was completely taken with this tall, handsome doctor. He was black, but that didn't matter to me. He was a true gentleman. My friend had told me I would like him. That evening, I got dressed in my new red dress, hoping to catch his eye. I found David at the cocktail party and brought him a glass of wine. We struck up a conversation, and I learned he had recently gone through a divorce. We talked about our work, and he mentioned he would be leading a new robotic team at County General in LA. The next night, at a formal dinner, David asked to join me and Dr. Shah. He was charming and polite. During the speeches, it was revealed he was one of the creators of a new surgical robot. I couldn't stop thinking about David that night. Our connection was undeniable. And as our time together continued, I felt myself falling for him more and more. David and I returned to the lounge after clearing off tables for the band to set up. The place was starting to get crowded, so David took my hand and led me to a booth in the back. He ordered us some chocolate martinis, and when I asked how he knew I liked them, he simply said that such a beautiful and sweet woman must enjoy them. We shared a soft kiss as the band began to play a slow song, and then David pulled me onto the dance floor. Despite our height difference, we moved together gracefully, and I felt myself melting into his arms. We danced several times before returning to our booth for more drinks. I jokingly asked if he was trying to get me drunk, but he assured me that he wanted me to be fully aware and enjoy every moment when we made love. He kissed my hand, sending shivers down my spine, and we danced a couple more times before I finally mentioned needing to get some sleep. David walked me to my room, and as we kissed goodnight, it was no longer just a peck on the cheek. Our lips met passionately, and our tongues danced together briefly before he pulled away, wishing me a good night's sleep. As he headed to the elevator, I couldn't help but feel a strong desire for him, but I knew it was best to wait for the right time. I was still naked from pleasuring myself when I heard a knock at my door. Quickly throwing on my sweatshirt, I opened it to find David standing there with a cart of breakfast goodies. He complimented my legs and started piling food onto my plate, all the while casually rubbing his foot against my skin. I couldn't focus on eating as his foot moved higher, teasing me until I couldn't take it anymore and orgasmed right there. I wanted to push the cart away and jump him, but he pulled back and asked if I had a dress for the fancy ball that night. I didn't, so he said he would dress me and take me shopping. An hour later, I was dressed and tingling from his touch. He looked handsome in his outfit as he escorted me to his car. We drove away, anticipation building in my chest as I wondered what the night would bring. He took me shopping for a dress, but nothing was right. We tried so many, but he didn't like any. Finally, we went to a fancy store where they promised to make me the sexiest lady at the ball. The salesman was eager to help us find the perfect little black dress. He brought us wine and dresses to try on in the fitting room. As I undressed, the salesman insisted I remove my bra too. He was determined to make sure the dress fit perfectly. I felt nervous but excited at the same time. I wanted to look beautiful for the dance tonight. The anticipation was killing me as I slipped on the first dress. When I looked in the mirror, I couldn't believe how stunning I looked. It was like a dream come true. The salesman and David both agreed that this was the dress for me. I felt like a princess in that moment. The whole experience was magical, and I was so grateful for their help. I couldn't wait to show off my new dress at the dance. David was beaming with pride, and I knew he was happy with his choice. I felt like the luckiest girl in the world. The night was going to be unforgettable thanks to that perfect little black dress. David looked me up and down, his manhood getting bigger. The salesman asked if he should leave so I could try on the dresses. I said no. David was paying, so he needed to approve. I liked the first 3 dresses, but David wanted to see them all. The 4th dress was tight, but David loved it. He bought it without asking the price. We left and went to a jewelry store. David wanted to buy me a pearl necklace. After trying on a few, he unbuttoned my shirt to show off my chest. The salesperson brought out special pearl necklaces from the safe. They were very expensive. David liked one that hung over my breasts. He also liked a set with earrings. The cheapest one was $5,900. He decided to buy it. I put on the necklace and earrings David had bought me. I looked in the mirror and felt amazed. David saw my smile and bought them without hesitation. I stopped him and said he shouldn't spend money on me like this. It made me feel uncomfortable, but it was too late. He had already paid. I felt guilty and called you. You were happy to hear from me. I felt conflicted, but decided to pamper myself. I went to the salon at the hotel and got my hair done, nails painted, and a wax job. I wanted to feel special for David. I got dressed up and put on heels. It was harder to walk in them than I thought. I had time to kill before David arrived, so I wandered around the hotel. Security kept asking me for my room card, and men kept hitting on me. I felt overwhelmed by everything that was happening. But deep down, I knew I wanted to make the most of this experience. I wanted to feel beautiful and confident. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted to make David remember me in a special way. I felt a wave of excitement as I sauntered into the hotel lounge, my sexy outfit attracting attention from the men around me. I was just looking for a drink to quench my thirst, but little did I know the trouble that would soon follow. The older man at the front desk challenged me for my room key, explaining that I looked like a hooker with my outfit. I was taken aback by his words, but brushed it off and made my way to the bar. The men in the lounge immediately took notice of me, offering to buy me drinks and striking up conversation. As I chatted and indulged in chocolate martinis, my phone buzzed with a call from David. He was worried about me and came down to find me surrounded by the men. He quickly intervened and they scattered, leaving me alone with him. David was not happy with my behavior, but I explained that I was just trying to have a good time. He urged me to eat and take care of myself as I had skipped lunch. I realized I had let the attention get to my head and promised to be more careful in the future. In the end, I learned that sometimes a little fun can lead to trouble and that it's important to prioritize my well-being over fleeting moments of excitement. With David by my side, I knew I could face any challenge that came my way. David took me to a booth and ordered us cheeseburgers, fries, and chocolate shakes. I didn't feel hungry, but I ate half of my lunch and enjoyed the shake. After finishing, I apologized to David. We missed dinner at the goodbye festivities, which was apparently terrible anyway. The dancing had just started. My new shoes made it easier for me to dance with David. We were close, and I felt a strong connection as we kissed. The band finished for the night, and David led me to my room. We made out in the elevator and quickly undressed when we got inside. We were about to make love when David stopped and expressed his concerns about cheating on my husband and breaking my wedding vows. I was overcome with emotion. I turned away and started crying. David covered me with the blankets and comforted me. He told me he was falling in love with me and wanted to be sure that I was sure about leaving my husband. I realized the gravity of the situation and asked him to leave before I did something foolish. I felt guilty and confused. I asked if he hated me for what had almost happened. I tried to justify my actions, but deep down I knew I had crossed a line. David reminded me of what had happened between us, and I couldn't deny it. In that moment, I felt a mix of emotions: guilt, fear, and desire. I was torn between my marriage and my feelings for David. I needed to make a decision, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to face the consequences of my actions. My wife told me she wanted to cheat with a black doctor. She got naked in front of him and begged him to have sex with her. She asked if she could see him sometimes to fulfill her urges. I was upset and asked if she wanted me to give her permission to cheat on me while I sat at home. I told her he wanted to break up our marriage to be with her. She said it wouldn't happen, but I warned her that it would if she went through with it. I had never cheated on her and was shocked to find out she had done this with him. She thought I might enjoy watching them together, but I was furious. My wife of 22 years had just confessed to wanting an affair with another man. I was shocked when Kelly admitted she wanted to have sex with a black man. I was heartbroken and confused. Then our daughter Alicia walked in and asked about it. She was upset and worried about our marriage. She shared stories she had heard about white women and black men. I comforted Alicia, explaining that people have different preferences. She mentioned some white men she knew with big tools, but then stopped herself. She didn't want to talk about her own experiences with me. I assured her she could talk to me about anything without judgment. Later, I couldn't sleep, thinking about Kelly lying to me and possibly cheating. I went to her workplace, only to find out she wasn't there. My anxiety grew as I realized she was keeping secrets from me. I drove around, searching for her, feeling lost and betrayed. My heart sank as I couldn't find Kelly. I was filled with worry and confusion, unsure of what to do next. The uncertainty and fear weighed heavily on me as I drove aimlessly, hoping to find some answers. I was walking down the street when I saw the restaurant Kelly and I liked. Her car was parked next to another one, and I felt anger rising inside me. I wanted to damage the cars, but I decided to go inside the restaurant instead. Sitting there, I saw Kelly and a man holding hands in a booth. I felt a surge of emotions. I asked the server if I could get a drink, and she nodded. I gave her some money and ordered a strong drink. As I took a sip, I made my way over to Kelly and the man. I put my drink on the table and introduced myself as Kelly's husband, at least for now. Kelly was shocked, and the man said it was nice to meet me. I couldn't hold back and made a comment about not fitting her ideal type. Kelly was upset, and the man left. Kelly started crying, and I confronted her about lying to me. She explained that she had to meet the man because he asked to talk. I felt hurt and betrayed. I told her we needed to talk at home and I would follow her there. We left the restaurant, both of us feeling the weight of the situation. We needed to have a serious conversation about what had happened. We left together, me close behind Kelly. She went through a yellow light too late, and I followed, catching the red light twice. I wasn't going to let her escape. Each time I could see her checking to see if I was still following. We got home, sat at the kitchen table, and I gave us both water. Kelly was nervous, fidgeting like a cat on a hot roof. I smiled and asked, "So you still want him? Does that mean we have to get divorced, Kelly? I can't handle your lies." She started crying, saying, "No, Michael, I don't want a divorce. I love you. Can't you see that? I need to figure out why I'm acting like this. Do you even care about me? Do you still love me?" I shook my head, saying, "I've loved you since high school. We promised to be faithful, remember? Well, I'm not dead. I won't be for a long time. But you seem like you're ready to break that promise. If you really loved me, you wouldn't have done what you did with David." Kelly looked down for a few minutes, then finally met my eyes and said, "Michael, it wasn't like that. We were just talking. David wanted to know how I was doing if I told you everything. When I said I did, he joked about marrying me since you threatened to leave if we had sex." "That's when you came over and sat next to me," she added, avoiding my gaze. I told Kelly that I didn't believe her. I felt like she was going to have sex with him no matter what I said. "Have you already done it?" She just looked down and didn't answer. I got up and Alicia came in. She said Kelly didn't want to be part of our family anymore. She just wanted her black lover. Alicia called her Kelly instead of Mom and said she was dead to her. Kelly tried to go after Alicia, but I held her back. Alicia said she could handle her. She had martial arts training. Kelly started crying and Alicia left. I went to work and found out that my partners wanted to buy Evergreen Industries. The owner wanted to retire and take cash, land, and stocks. He had 4 plants in Seattle. The board wanted me to visit them with 2 partners and decide what to do, upgrade or sell. I didn't want to go, especially with Kelly's interest in David, but they insisted. I tried calling Kelly, but she didn't answer. So I called Alicia and told her. She said Kelly might take the chance to be with David while I'm away. She said, "Daddy, couldn't you do something? Get her help." I told her I think our marriage is over. Alicia asked if I have cheated. I said no, I always stayed faithful. We were planning to grow old together. She asked how long I'd be gone. I said most of next week. She cried, knowing Kelly might betray me. I reassured her, said I'll figure out the truth when I return. Alicia promised to watch Kelly closely. Emotions were high as I prepared to leave for Seattle to make decisions about the plants. My heart ached at the thought of what Kelly might do while I'm away. Alicia was distraught, fearing for our family's future. But I knew I had to go, to fulfill my duties despite the pain in my heart. And so, with a heavy heart, I packed my bags and braced myself for the uncertain days ahead. It was Thursday, and I really didn't feel like working, so I told my secretary I was leaving early as I was about to leave our parking lot. I remembered that Alicia loved the root beer float ice cream from the small specialty ice cream shop about 2 blocks away. So I made a left turn instead of my usual route. As I was about to pull in, I noticed a store right before the ice cream shop that caught my attention. It was called Ice by Toys. I parked and went inside. The place was filled with all kinds of cool gadgets and spy cameras. The salesman, Tony, greeted me and guessed that I was worried about my wife cheating on me. I was surprised by his accurate guess. He showed me some gadgets, and I ended up buying motion-activated micro cameras, a GPS tracker for Kelly's car, and a program for her phone. Tony also recommended a battery backup with solar panels in case of power loss. I decided to get that too since he offered me a discount. As I was paying, Tony mentioned that he knew my daughter, Alicia. I was shocked but confirmed it. Yes, I do have a beautiful blonde daughter named Alicia. She bought cameras in the morning to catch her mother. She seemed upset. I got the camera frequency to add to my iCloud. Then I went home and found Alicia, gave her a hug and asked about her cameras. Alicia giggled and showed me where she hid them. We added more cameras together. Alicia suggested we become private investigators. That night, Kelly came home tired. She had a long day with surgeries. She slept in our bed while I stayed in the guest room. I tried to check her phone but couldn't guess the password. Finally, I unlocked it and installed a tracking program. I put her phone back and hid a GPS in her car. In the morning, Kelly left early. I called her but got voicemail. I couldn't focus at work, thinking about what I did. During lunch, I told my assistant I needed to go home and pack for a trip. But really, all I could think about was my wife cheating on me. I went to the bank, took out money from our accounts, and opened a new one. I talked to a lawyer and sold most of my shares in the company. I started crying while driving home. A police officer stopped me and I told her everything. She asked if I had been drinking, but I hadn't. We joked about having a drink together. My tears stopped and I felt a bit better. Her name tag said Kelly, but I don't think you need a drink right now. Maybe you just need some company. My husband is a detective and a kickboxer, so I better not go with you. But my sister Cassie might be up for it. Her cheating husband left her 2 years ago, and I've been trying to get her out of the house. Let me call her. I told her not to, but she was already on the phone. She said she met a nice guy who needed cheering up. She said I should get dressed up for a dinner, dancing, and drinks. I wasn't sure what to say, but she insisted. She gave me Cassie's info and said Michael Grant would pick me up at 6:30. His wife is cheating on him and he's going through a divorce. Treat her right, she said, and remember I have your details. I drove home feeling confused. Still no word from Kelly, but Alicia was there to hug me and offer comfort. She reassured me that everything would be okay without her. And I believed her. I looked at my pretty daughter and said, "What if I told you that a lady cop stopped me today because I was crying so hard I couldn't see?" I told her everything. Then we sat on the curb and talked. She asked if I had been drinking and I joked about having a drink together. She said her husband is a cop too and a fighter. Then she called her sister and set me up on a date for tonight. I've never been on a date with another woman. Am I bad for this? Alicia smiled and hugged me. Dad, clean up and look nice for your date. Forget about Kelly hurting you. Just have fun with Cassie. That's her name. Promise me that, okay? I looked at Alicia and said, "When did you become so wise, my love? Without you, I would be lost. Have you told James yet?" "No, I haven't. Tonight I'll set things straight with him. Now go get ready for your date." I went to my room, freshened up, and dressed nicely. Then I went downstairs for a glass of wine. Still no word from Kelly. I saw her text to David about meeting at Barney's at 7 o'clock. I just shook my head. Shortly after, Kelly walked in and tried to kiss me, but I pulled away. She didn't seem bothered as she went up to our room, showered, and got ready to go out. She looked amazing. I wanted to grab her, undress her, and have sex with her, but I knew she wasn't dressed up for me. She wore a white shirt, tight black pants, and black shoes. I asked her why she was dressed that way. Was she meeting David? She smiled and said she would never do that. She told me he was just a fantasy. She was going out with some friends to relax. She said she would be out late, so I shouldn't wait up. I checked the GPS on her car and saw she was going to the fancy part of town where the new homes were. I found out that was where David lived. I checked my watch and realized I needed to go meet Cassie, my wife who soon would be my ex-wife. She had left the house to meet her boyfriend. I drove to meet her, but a kind police officer stopped and introduced me to her divorced sister. I hadn't dated anyone since Kelly 30 years ago. Excited to see what would happen, I got in my car and went to meet her. I bought some flowers and went to her nice house in a fancy neighborhood. I rang the bell and was stunned. In front of me was a real-life Jessica Rabbit. She had red hair, big breasts, and a tiny waist. She was wearing a tight black top. Oh my God, she was stunning. Cassie wore a black and white skirt with high heels and nylons. She greeted me and offered a drink before we left. We went into her well-decorated home, and she took the flowers I brought her. We had wine in the kitchen before heading out to dinner. I took her to a steakhouse with great steaks. Cassie was worried about the prices, but I reassured her. We ordered our food, and she decided to try the beef Wellington. Dinner and conversation were nice. We danced at the bar, and I shared a story with her. Cassie hugged me, understanding the situation. I almost forgot about Kelly until I got a message on my phone from her friend asking where she was. They were at the playpen and expected her to be there. Kelly replied that she was caught up with something more important. I suggested to my date that we go have some fun. I asked my date if she wanted to go to Barney's for drinks and dancing, just to see if my wife would notice. Her friends had texted her, wondering why she had not met them at the playpen like she said she would. My date, Cassie, agreed to the plan. We headed to Barney's, and on the way she asked how I was getting my wife's texts. I jokingly said it was magic or maybe a sneaky spy program I installed on her phone. Cassie found it amusing. When we arrived at Barney's, it was bustling with people. As Cassie pointed to the far corner, I saw my wife with her lover, David. She looked stunning in a little black dress. Cassie asked if I let her leave the house dressed like that, and I admitted she had worn something different when she left. Seeing my wife in that dress for the first time made me feel a mixture of anger and sadness. I had never seen her look so alluring. David had his hand on her backside, and it made my blood boil. Cassie was shocked by my wife's appearance. As we watched from a distance, I couldn't help but feel a wave of complex emotions. It was a strange mix of jealousy, regret, and a desire for revenge. But in that moment, I was grateful to have Cassie by my side, sharing this strange experience with me. She said he got it for her in Dallas. The pearls and earrings, too. But I tracked her car to where I think David lives tonight. Cassie shook her head and whispered, "I bet she was with him there, too." I winced, but agreed with her. We waited as they danced another dance, sitting in a booth in the back. We stood at the bar, talking about our lives. Suddenly, a booth near them opened up and Cassie pulled me to it. Kelly and David were too lost in each other to notice. The music started playing and Cassie asked, "Can you dance?" I smiled, pulled her up, and we hit the dance floor like teenagers. The crowd gave us room to show off, and we danced wildly. Cassie was an amazing dancer, and we were really getting into it. Kelly never liked dancing like this. Cassie and I were spinning, sliding, and having a great time. The song ended, and I did a crazy move that got the crowd cheering loudly. As we walked back to our table, Kelly suddenly yelled my name. I turned to see her storming towards us with David behind her. She demanded to know what I was doing and who Cassie was. She accused me of betraying her love and flaunting Cassie in front of everyone. Before I could say a word, Cassie stood up and confronted Kelly. She looked Kelly in the eye and calmly explained that she had no intention of replacing her, but just wanted to have a good time dancing. Kelly looked taken aback, but stayed silent. Cassie sat back down, and we all sat in silence for a moment. Eventually, Kelly sighed and said she understood. She apologized for overreacting and thanked Cassie for being understanding. The tension seemed to lift, and we all sat back down at the table. As the night went on, we all danced together and had a great time putting the drama behind us. Listen, miss, you think it's okay if you cheat with David, but you go crazy if your husband goes on a date with another woman. Isn't that being unfair? You wish. Kelly stumbled a bit, then said, but he's my husband, and I love him. Cassie laughed and said, yeah, right. You love him so much. You're cheating with David here. Tell me, how do you think that's love? Honey, please explain it to me. Kelly said, it's just something I need to do and get out of my system. Then I'm going back to Michael to still be his wife. What? Can't you see? Cassie shook her head and got closer to Kelly's face and said, you're a mess. If you think you can cheat with David, then go back to Michael. You're crazy. 99% of men, Michael included, won't tolerate a cheating wife, especially when she throws it in his face like you have. If I were in his place, I'd have already kicked you out. I hope you realize you have lost the best thing you ever had. Kelly screamed at her. No, I'm going back to him, I promise. I looked at her and said, Kelly, I'm not putting up with your crazy ideas. I'm already talking to a lawyer. You're allowing him into your room, touching him, letting him give you a job. Then begging him to cheat with you is more than I can handle. You don't seem to want to be my wife, so I'm going to give you your freedom. You can go cheat with whoever you like. By the way, I have to leave on Sunday to go to Seattle for a week on business. If you keep up with the affair with David, we're done. Got it. Kelly was crying and said, honestly, Michael, we haven't had sex. Then she turned to David and said, have we, dear? David didn't answer. He just looked at the floor. I said, well, Kelly, I think I have my answer. She grabbed David's lapels and shook him and said, tell Michael we haven't had sex yet. I stood in as Cassie was about to leave. I told Kelly that if I found out she cheated on me with David, I would divorce her. Do you understand? It was up to me. David or Cassie. Cassie and I left the restaurant, and she held my hand in the car. When we got to her place, she asked if I wanted to spend the night with her. I wanted to, but I was still married, so I had to decline. She understood, and we kissed goodbye. I went home and waited for Kelly to return. She called me in the middle of the night saying she couldn't come home. I suspected she had been with David. My trip to Seattle was busy, with meetings at Evergreen Industries. The attendance records at the Tacoma plant were not good. My time in Seattle was stressful. The Tacoma plant had poor attendance, and I suspected Kelly had been with David. I was determined to make a change at work, so I announced mandatory drug and alcohol testing for absent employees. The receptionist agreed, saying it was about time someone took charge. She knew most absentees were just partying and needed to be checked by a doctor before coming back to work. Later, my daughter called me, worried that Kelly may have caught on to our plan. She saw Kelly with a new phone and suspected something was up. I quickly made up an excuse to leave work and headed to the Sheraton where Kelly was staying. I arrived just in time as my daughter had already eavesdropped on Kelly's room. She managed to record some incriminating evidence of Kelly's infidelity. I was proud of her quick thinking and brave actions. It was clear that Kelly was up to no good, and I was grateful for my daughter's help in uncovering the truth. It was a risky move, but it was worth it to put a stop to Kelly's deceit. The satisfaction of getting to the bottom of things was overwhelming, and I knew we had made the right decision. Captivated by my selfie stick, I had on an earpiece listening to my mother confess her affair to her lover for almost 30 minutes. Suddenly, the manager tapped my shoulder and asked what was going on. I motioned for him to be quiet and whispered that my mother was cheating on my father, and I needed evidence for him to divorce her. Tears welled up as I pleaded for him not to give me away, for I loved my father deeply, and my mother's actions had shattered us both. She told her lover she wanted this affair, but planned to return to my father when it was over. It was devastating. The manager, sharing his own experience of being cheated on, suggested we use my camera to catch them in the act. With his master key, we entered the room quietly as they were engrossed in their betrayal. My mother was on all fours, lost in ecstasy, as her lover took advantage. They didn't notice us as we approached, recording everything. When her lover realized, he called out her name in shock. My mother snapped out of her reverie, horrified to see us there witnessing her infidelity. The manager bravely asked them to leave, revealing their betrayal. The emotions were raw as they hastily dressed and departed. The truth was out, and my father deserved better than this deceit. It was a painful moment, but necessary for us to move forward from the deception that had torn our family apart. David frantically searched for his clothes as Kelly wrapped herself in a sheet and beckoned for me to come closer. I sternly told them all that cheating is not acceptable here, and if they stayed longer than 10 minutes, I would call the police for trespassing. I made it clear that their actions had consequences. I informed them that I was sending evidence of their affair to various people, including their parents, siblings, employers, and even their lawyer. I told them they were not welcome back home and that I would be changing all the locks and security codes. Kelly begged for forgiveness, saying she loved my father, but I could see through her lies. I quickly made calls to ensure the locks would be changed and their belongings would be put on the curb that night. I also arranged for divorce proceedings to begin. Seeing the video footage of their betrayal made me sick, not just from their actions, but from the hurtful words they had said about me. I knew I had to do what was best for my father, even if it meant ending my marriage. And so, I began the process of moving on from the betrayal that had shattered my world. He said we might have to sell the house or I'd have to buy her out, and she might get half of my business. I told him to let her try but didn't say much. We toured Evergreen Industries and made a plan to keep some locations and sell one. It wouldn't be hard as many workers had already left when drug testing was announced. I struggled to stay sober that night. When I got home, I saw marks on the door. I rang the bell and she gave me new keys. I asked about the door and she said my ex-wife was hitting it with a bat. I called the cops and she ended up in jail. I laughed and shook my head at her. I thanked her and asked her to dinner. She mentioned a friend I should meet. I told her it was okay to call her mother even though she's upset with her. We hugged and she held on for a long time. When she finally let go, I asked Alicia where she wanted to go for dinner. She gave me a mischievous look and said, "Delaney's, if that's okay with you. Can I borrow one of your dresses for tonight?" I agreed and she ran off to my bedroom excitedly. Meanwhile, I poured myself a drink and called Cassie. I invited her to join us for dinner at Delaney's and she eagerly accepted. I didn't mention the incident with Kelly, but I assured her that Alicia would explain everything later. Cassie asked where we were going so she could dress appropriately. I told her about Delaney's and she asked for some time to get ready. I waited patiently, knowing that Alicia would take longer than Cassie. As I finished getting ready, I heard Alicia's heels clicking on the floor. When she entered the room, I was taken aback by how stunning she looked. Her blonde hair was styled like Kelly's, and she was wearing her mother's gray silk dress that hugged her curves perfectly. Alicia asked me what was wrong, but I couldn't find the words to express how beautiful she looked. It was as if Kelly was standing in front of me. I couldn't believe the dress Alicia was wearing. My heart almost stopped when I saw her in that red sequined dress. It reminded me of Jessica Rabbit, and she looked absolutely stunning. We went to Cassie's house, and when she opened the door, she thought I had 2 dates. I introduced Alicia, and they hit it off immediately. They sat down on the couch, and Alicia showed Cassie the video of how she caught her mother's boyfriend cheating. They were both in shock and discussing every detail. I knew it was time to leave, so I ushered them out to the car. Alicia insisted on driving and took my keys. She said she was going to chauffeur us because I was on a date with a beautiful woman. I climbed into the back seat as Cassie got in. We arrived at the restaurant, and the valet attendants were mesmerized by Alicia's dress as she got out of the car. We walked into the restaurant, and all eyes were on us. Alicia had everyone's attention with her confidence and beauty. I felt proud to have such a strong and independent daughter by my side. The night was off to a great start, thanks to Alicia's charm and driving skills. I was getting stares from everyone as we walked into the restaurant. The waiter quickly led us to our table. Our server, a young man named Dwayne, took our drink order. Cassie and I chose a bottle of Riesling, while Alicia opted for an Arnold Palmer since she was driving. As the night went on, Alicia was getting a lot of attention from the other guests. Cassie was also being asked to dance but didn't want to upset me. I reassured Cassie that she was not my property and could dance with anyone she liked, as long as she checked with me first. During a slow song, Alicia mentioned how she enjoyed flirting with Dean, the young man serving us. She playfully teased me about him being too young for her, and I was momentarily shocked until she revealed she was joking. Dean then asked Alicia to dance, and she happily accepted. Overall, it was a fun night filled with dancing and laughter. Cassie's eyes sparkled as she held out her hand to him, and he twirled her around the dance floor. I went back to our table, watching them dance together. When Cassie returned, she gave me a warm kiss, thanking me for letting Alicia dance with Dana. She asked me how I felt about her dating someone like him. We danced to a slow song, and I shared with her that as her father, I have to let her make her own decisions and mistakes. I will always be here to offer advice when she asks, but I won't force my values on her. Cassie told me that she admired my wisdom and said she felt like she was falling in love with me, even though we hadn't known each other for long. She kissed me deeply, and we danced around the edge of the dance floor, lost in each other's eyes. As midnight approached, Alicia and Cassie yawned, signaling that it was time to head home. We left the club, and in the car, Cassie and I continued to kiss like teenagers. When we pulled into the driveway, I realized we were at my house. Alicia suggested that they have a sleepover, which I agreed to. I watched as they went inside, feeling grateful for the special night we had shared together. I didn't expect my girlfriend to stay over so soon in our relationship. But when Cassie kissed me passionately, I couldn't resist. We were both thrilled to be together, and my daughter Alicia even joined in on the fun. As we settled in, I offered Cassie a glass of wine, which we all enjoyed. Alicia even gave Cassie one of my t-shirts to wear, and they disappeared into another room to watch a movie together. I quickly changed into some silk pajamas and joined them for a cozy evening. The smell of popcorn filled the house, bringing back memories of simpler times. Cassie was in the kitchen wearing just a t-shirt and panties making the popcorn. Alicia was there too, excited for our movie night. I couldn't believe how lucky I was to have both of these amazing women in my life. Despite the unexpected turn of events, I felt happy and content. It was a night I would never forget, filled with love and laughter. She heated butter in the microwave and poured it over a bowl of popcorn. Cassie mixed it up while I added more popcorn. Alicia brought out the wine and we settled in for a movie night. We heard the movie begin and Alicia quickly covered up. Cassie brought out the popcorn and we snuggled on the couch. Alicia had streamed a movie from her account and we all indulged in the popcorn. Alicia got immersed in the movie while Cassie and I shared a secret moment. She poured more wine for Alicia, making sure she fell asleep peacefully. When Alicia went to the bathroom, I teased Cassie about getting my daughter drunk. She simply grinned and pulled me into a kiss, promising a night to remember. As the movie played, Cassie's touch sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't focus on the movie as she teased me. Eventually, Alicia fell asleep and Cassie carried her to bed. In the kitchen, she pulled me close and undressed me, igniting a fire between us. The night was filled with passion and desire as we surrendered to each other's love. She did a boob job for me. Kelly hadn't in years. I couldn't even remember the last time. But Cassie was doing it all perfectly. When she pulled away, she looked so sexy and said, "Michael, take me to bed and make love to me, please." I took her hand and we rushed up to the bedroom. She quickly took off her t-shirt and underwear. Cassie was amazing, and I was so happy to be with her. I felt so good, but also guilty. Cassie noticed and asked me why I felt guilty. I explained that I was technically still married to Kelly. She got on top of me and said firmly, "You have nothing to feel guilty about. Your ex-wife made the choice to cheat on you. She stopped loving you a long time ago. You deserve happiness." I had just experienced the best time with a woman who was like a model, but it was bittersweet because I had lost the woman I loved for so long. Alicia came into the room and agreed with Cassie. She shared that Mom had made her get birth control when she turned 16. It was a tough realization, but it made me realize that I deserved to be happy. After lunch, my mom and I had a chat. She said she regretted not fooling around more in college or while my dad was away. She said if I had the chance to be with a guy, I should go for it before settling down. She also said to always use protection to avoid diseases. I started being sexually active 3 months later. I promised to tell her about every guy I was with, but she stopped asking after a while. I think she was having an affair back then. One day I caught my dad and my friend Cassie together, and it turned out my mom had encouraged them. I was shocked to learn that my own mom had turned me into a player without me knowing. I tried to warn my daughter to be careful about her actions, but she seemed unfazed by it all. I worry she won't be happy in the long run if she keeps this up. I can't imagine many men would be okay with their wives being with other guys and staying married. But my daughter seems to think it's all okay. Alicia said she's going to college in Jackson, Tennessee, near where Beth lives. She knows how much money she has for college, and since she won't have to pay for housing, she'll have enough to cover her education. She also promised to be well-behaved in college and not get into any trouble. She doesn't plan on getting married until after she finishes school. I couldn't help but feel proud of her. Cassie agreed that Alicia had it all planned out, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of doubt. I couldn't forget about her past mistakes, the things she did in college that she never told us about. But Alicia assured me that she had learned from her past and was ready to start fresh. She even shared some shocking truths about her mother's past, about the affairs she had in college. It made me question everything about my marriage. Was it all a lie? As I lay there pondering, I asked Alicia if she knew anything about her mother's affairs after that. She shook her head, saying she had her suspicions but could never prove anything. There were times when she came home to find strange men in the house, but her mother always had an excuse. I couldn't help but feel betrayed and hurt. How could I have been so blind all these years? Was our marriage just a facade? A joke to her? The thought weighed heavily on my heart as I tried to come to terms with the truth. I can't forget how funny it was when she introduced me to the same guy, but with a different name. When I asked her about it later, she denied it and said I must have been mistaken. It's clear now that she was cheating on you all along, but I have no proof for the divorce court. Kelly fought hard against the divorce. She argued that she still loved me and her one mistake shouldn't ruin our marriage. She claimed it was something she needed to do and planned on coming back to our normal life. Her therapist even testified that I should be more understanding and forgive her for a mistake after being a great wife for over 20 years, and here I was, ready to give it all up. Kelly pointed her finger at me and said, "Shame on you." The judge warned her to control herself or face contempt charges. Her lawyer called her former boss, Dr. Penrose, who praised her as a great nurse and one of his best employees ever. Then our lawyer questioned Dr. Penrose about any advances from Kelly, but he denied them. He was excused from the stand. Next, our lawyer called his wife, Lori Penrose. Kelly's lawyer objected, but the judge allowed it. Mrs. Penrose turned to Kelly and said, "Yes, I did have suspicions that Kelly wanted to seduce my husband." She described how Kelly would dress provocatively at work, try to take her husband out for lunch, and made inappropriate comments. While Dr. Penrose didn't want to speak badly about Kelly, others in the office confirmed what was going on. When I asked my spouse about it, he owned up to it, but insisted he never did anything physical with her, just harmless flirting. But what she was doing was far from harmless, in my opinion. Another nurse mentioned she often went out for long lunches with pharmaceutical reps. During the hearing, Kelly's lawyer smugly questioned me, asking if I had seen Mrs. Grant make advances towards my husband or go out to lunch with reps. I clarified that I never caught her flirting with my husband, but did witness her inappropriately dressed a few times and looking disheveled after lunch meetings with reps. After I was excused, it was my daughter Alicia's turn to testify. She recounted seeing strange men at home and her mother pressuring her to get an IUD at a young age and advising her to have sex with older men. Alicia was shocked and felt uncomfortable hearing her mother's words. In a story-like tone with a mix of emotions, my husband confessed to flirting with another woman. But the truth was much more damaging. The evidence against her piled up during the hearing, highlighting her questionable behavior. Alicia's testimony revealed a disturbing pattern of her mother's behavior, leaving us all stunned and horrified. The courtroom was filled with tension as the truth unfolded, painting a grim picture of deceit and betrayal. She told the court it took her 3 months to gather the courage to let a boy be intimate with her. She then mentioned how her mother used to be very interested in her interactions with boys, wanting to know all the details. But 6 months before catching her in bed with David, her mother stopped asking for updates on her dates. Alicia suspected her mother was having an affair due to her changed behavior. However, she declined to provide names of individuals she was involved with, stating that she didn't want to ruin their marriages. She requested to show a video of her catching Kelly and David in a compromising situation. The judge allowed it, leading to chaos in the courtroom. It was revealed that Kelly and David were engaged in inappropriate behavior and were oblivious to being recorded. Alicia was freed, and Mrs. Jeffries was called as a surprise witness, shocking Kelly and her lawyer. Today in court, Mrs. Jeffrey came forward with some important information regarding Kelly's divorce case. The judge allowed her to testify, and my lawyer asked for her full name. When she said Louise Marie Jeffrey, or Mrs. Dr. Martin Jeffrey, Kelly looked shocked and scared. Mrs. Jeffrey was sworn in and asked to tell the court why she contacted us. She revealed that Kelly was claiming the affair was a one-time mistake, but she knew the truth. Kelly had been having an affair with Mrs. Jeffrey's husband, Dr. Patterson, for 6 months. Mrs. Jeffrey provided videos of Kelly and Dr. Patterson meeting secretly in the hospital storage rooms. The judge demanded to see the evidence, despite objections from Kelly's lawyer. The images on the screen showed Kelly and Dr. Patterson in compromising situations, confirming Mrs. Jeffrey's claims. The courtroom was tense as the truth came to light. Kelly's betrayal was exposed for all to see. It was a shocking moment that changed everything in the divorce case. Kelly's lies were finally unraveled, and justice was served. Kelly was caught cheating on me with multiple men in different hotels. She was even with Dr. Jeffrey and 2 other men at the same time. I was shocked to see her engaging in such acts on video. She tried to defend herself by saying she only loved me, but how could that be true when she was with so many other men? I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Kelly had been unfaithful to me with David Patterson and even at his townhouse. It was clear that she had been deceiving me for a long time. I felt disgusted and betrayed by her actions. During the trial, Mrs. Jeffrey proudly showed off her expensive jewelry, revealing that she was still married to Dr. Jeffrey and taking his money. It was clear that she was only in it for the financial gain. She even had a key to his tool cage, symbolizing how she had control over his actions. As I watched her leave the witness stand, I realized the extent of her manipulation and deceit. Despite her attempts to appear innocent, it was clear that she was only interested in her own selfish desires. I felt a mix of anger and sadness as I saw her true colors. In the end, I was left feeling broken and betrayed by the woman I once loved. The pain of her infidelity was too much to bear, and I knew that I had to move on from this toxic relationship. Kelly's actions had shown me her true nature, and I knew that I deserved better than someone who could deceive me so easily. The judge declared that Kelly, a surgical nurse with a good income, would not receive spousal support. But she had to pay child support since their daughter Alicia wanted to stay with her father. It was decided that I would stay in the family home until Alicia finished college, after which the house would be sold and the proceeds divided equally between Kelly, me, and the kids. It was also revealed that I had sold my business, which sparked anger in Kelly. The judge reviewed the documents and deemed everything legal. He ordered Kelly to give up my last name, go back to her maiden name, and stay away from me and my workplace. A restraining order was put in place to prevent her from bothering me. The judge made it clear that any violations would result in jail time. Kelly, though reluctant, ultimately signed the documents. As the judge left, she begged for forgiveness, but my lawyer quickly escorted us out of the courtroom. The end of our marriage was nearing, but the emotions and tension were still high. Alicia and I got home and changed into comfy clothes. My daughter poured me a drink, which I really needed. Cassie came over and we all had drinks in my room. We had cold pizza for dinner. Cassie and I dated for a while before she hinted at marriage. I gave her a ring and she was thrilled. I also surprised her with a honeymoon trip to Jamaica. She was excited and started planning for the trip. I told her to wear a white nightgown for the wedding. I planned to wear board shorts and a bow tie. Let's get married by the water, barefoot and happy. Our wedding photos will be so beautiful. I held her hand and kissed it gently, whispering, "My love, I just want us to be together." "Let's get married soon," I said to Cassie as we sat down for breakfast. "I have a good offer for my business, and once we're married, we can sell our homes, get a motor coach, and travel together. What do you think?" She looked at me with love in her eyes and sat on my lap, saying, "Michael, you're the most amazing man. I want to be with you forever. But we still need some hobbies outside of our marriage. Let's find something we both enjoy. I want to work on cars, like I did with my uncle in high school. What about you, Cassie? What do you want to do?" I could see she was a bit shy, but finally said, "I want to paint and create art. Together we can live a happy, fulfilling life. Let's make our dreams come true, starting with our marriage by the water's edge. I really want to start painting again. I used to paint in college. I would take pictures and paint what I saw. I got pretty good at it. I even entered an art show and won a few awards. But then life got busy. I got a job and met my husband. I never had time to paint anymore. Michael said we could make a deal. He smiled. I think it's a good idea. I miss painting so much. I want to start again. It's something I love to do. I can't wait to get back into it. I want to see what I can create now. It's going to be amazing. So excited to start painting again. Hey listeners, if you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.